One of the things I learned as as a dad, all right, when I became a father, is the stuff that you get exposed to, okay, like TV shows, music, and stuff like that. I remember when my daughter, she was like 6 years old, and my son um was, just born. My daughter must have been probably 7 years old at that time, 7 or 8 or something like that. All right, so with the magic of editing after that quick break that we just had, and luckily our man's power coming back on,
I'm
Keith is now
back.
here. That's right, Keith is here. So I know I said at the beginning of the show that he wasn't going to be with us, but luckily his power has come back on and he is able to join us for the rest of the show. So Keith, how's it going?
Better now that my power's back on.
That's
Who
good.
would have thought? Why would Duke Energy be like, "Hey, it's 12 o'clock. Let's go ahead and update everybody's utilities around here, and let's shut it off for well, it's been off since about 10:30
Yeah,
this morning."
and do it on a Thursday because I know when I think
Yeah,
of a good time to do it, it would be Thursday afternoon, right? Like
yeah,
that's usually a
and
good idea.
and granted, yeah, it ain't scorching hot like it has been, but it's hotter this today than it has been this week. So it's like, this is stupid. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just wait? Do it in the morning. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's that type of stuff always drives me nuts. It's like when I'm driving or commuting to work, and I'm on the interstate on like I-5 or 80 West, and then all of a sudden it goes from 4 lanes to 1 lane because they're doing construction. And it's like, really,
Yeah,
you thought the best time to do this was 5 p.m. on a Tuesday? Like you didn't think like, hey, maybe we should do this at nighttime when there's like hardly anybody on the road. Let's do it at
right.
rush hour.
It's too
It's
easy.
yeah, it just boggles my mind. And I have friends who work for those companies, and I've asked them before, I'm like, why do you guys do that? Why do you guys do that? And they're like, well, they do that because a lot of the guys, because of the crews, it's normal hours and stuff like that, and a lot of people working nights for that long. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. That's the job you signed
I
up
work
for.
nights.
Yeah, that's the job you signed up for. Then do it,
Uh,
right? I worked nights for years at a casino because it was open 24 hours a day. I didn't like it. They didn't care, right? Like
well, it's
so,
kinda like
that's your job.
if you get an emergency call out at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not gonna take it?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
nighttime, I don't work at night.
Exactly. So yeah, that stuff drives me nuts. But all right, anyways, moving on. So we got to get into the NASCAR stuff. Now, before we get into Kyle Larson's win and that drama, I got to cover this first because when I was watching the race and I was seeing my man Kimi Raikkonen having a good run. He was up in the top 10, was getting comfortable, finding his speed, and then all of a sudden he just had some bad luck happen and got taken out. And it reminded me of a cartoon, and I'll explain what I mean. So, one of the things that I discovered pretty early on, being a dad, being a father, and Keith, I know you can relate to this, is the stuff that you are exposed to as a dad. So, for example, I remember when my daughter was like 7 or 8 years old, and we had our TV. We had a Roku, which is basically like it turns your TV into a smart TV. Back then, it was a big deal, right? This was like 9, 10 years ago. So back then it was like a big deal. Now everything's smart, but back then it was a big deal. And so we had YouTube on our TV on our Roku. Well, the YouTube account that was used to sign in was mine. So my daughter and my wife's nieces, my daughter's cousins, stuff like that, like they would get on YouTube and they would watch all these like music videos and all this kid stuff, right? And I remember one time I was working, it was like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm listening to music on YouTube. Well, YouTube's got the algorithm and they base it off of the stuff that you've looked up, the stuff that you've watched. And all of a sudden, I'm listening to Taylor Swift, right? In One Direction. I'm like, what the hell? I don't I didn't pick this. Like, why is this? I was just listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Why am I listening to Trouble When You Walked In or whatever the hell it is by Taylor Swift? Well, it was because that was the account that my kids use, right? My son, all these years, he's 9 now, and for the last, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, I've spent many a nights watching cartoons with them, kid shows with them, right? Now, a lot of them, I'll be honest with you, I really like. I'm a huge fan of Despicable Me, right? Or the Pixar movies. I love that stuff. It's really, really cool. It's amazing the stuff that they
And
come
now
up with. Yeah.
I'll get down and watch some cars now.
Yeah, man, I love that stuff. You know what I mean? It's incredible the way that they create those things. And there's a show that me and my son watched that's called Ninjago, and it's based on Lego, right? So it's like Lego characters, and it's been on for years. It's like there's like 16 seasons or something. It's been on forever. Well, a couple seasons ago, they had the season called Prime Empire. And what happens is, without having to get all into the details, but the main characters get sucked into a video game like you see in the movie Tron, and they have to, like, beat the bad guy and all stuff like this. Well, there's a character in the game, and his name is Okino. And Okino is the samurai of Terracotta, and he is a guide. Well, Okino, they have this whole episode where he has just the most horrible luck. Every person that he guides dies, and it's because they're idiots, right? Like, they just do the dumbest stuff. They just, like, walk into booby traps, fall in quicksand, like, just, it's ridiculous. It's one of my favorite episodes because it's hilarious. And no matter how hard Okino tries, he cannot save these people because it's just horrible, right? They're so bad. And finally he gets one that's finally good, and she's listening to him, and they get almost to the end, and then this, like, dragon comes and kills her, and it just crushes him. And he's sitting there, and he's just depressed, and he's talking about how, my shame is now complete. He said, from this day forward, when they say the word Okino, it will only be used to describe something terrible. And then he says, mockingly, he says, how was your day? It was Okino, right? Like, making essentially that his name has now become a verb. I thought of that part watching the race on Sunday when Ross Chastain once again pulled a Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain has now become a verb. You can literally say, dude, I got Chastained, and people will know what you're talking about. Think about that. This dude has hit so many people, run into so many cars, and they're not even dirty, just over driving. And it has become to a point now where you can literally say, dude, he got Chastained. And if you are a fan of NASCAR, you will know what they're talking about. Think about that, right? That is absolutely insane. And Chastain struck again, got into Austin Dillon, which unfortunately got into Kimi Räikkönen, ruined his day. Räikkönen was having a very good run. That was one of the reasons I was so upset, because I loved seeing Kimi Räikkönen do so well. He was getting comfortable. He had good speed. Would he have finished in the top 10? I don't know. There was still quite a ways to go. But it was cool to see, and it sucks that his day got, upended by Ross Chastain, and it's just a bummer. And we've said this before, for those of you, if you are new to the show, me and Keith, I am a Ross Chastain fan. I absolutely am. If you have not seen the video that I did on YouTube, I've talked about his future narrative is already written. If he goes on and wins races in a championship, this stuff will be looked at as a good thing. It's because he's aggressive and he takes no prisoners and he just goes for it. If he doesn't, we're going to torch him for it, right? It's going to be, can't drive, gets in over his head, is impatient. And it just sucks because the dude is so good. He's so good. And it's like every race he has this moment. It's almost like a pass-fail test, right? Like, there's no gray area. It's not like you can get an A, B, C, D, or F. No, it's just like you pass or you fail. And it seems like every week now for the last few weeks, he has been failing at it miserably. And it's not only costing other drivers, but it's costing him. It's hurting him in the process. And that's the worst part about it, because I don't see him getting out of the round of 16 now, because he has got so many
No way.
enemies out there, man.